Welcome back to session 3. Going to start with a little drill that we're going to start every single session with after this. So hopefully the initials are stop. The first one is quite obvious. S is for stop. So a sense that we can just kind of take a pause and stop. So just kind of notice that we've stopped. And then the T is for just take some breaths. Hold your breath for a couple of seconds and then just breathe out like you're blowing out candles. So just do a couple of those. And then just kind of observe your mind in this moment. So just kind of notice if your mind is busy with loads of like swirling thoughts, what we're going to do next, what's the point of this, or whether it's actually just quite quiet. And then notice your body. Just notice any areas of pain or discomfort. Notice your posture. And then push your feet down. And then just kind of stretch and refocus and come back to the room. And then we're ready to be present and engaged. So I'm hoping what you can see is sentences with the same 6-letter word missing. At the top, it says, research shows that knowing you're something makes life feel meaningful in times of crisis, but actually in other times as well. Knowing you're something helps manage stress, makes you more effective, improves cognitive performance, improves relationships, your weight, improves physical fitness, prevents mental crisis. So anyone got some guesses going on?
I personally think that knowing my worth helps manage stress.
Okay, that's a good guess. It's not the one that's missing, but it was a good guess.
Is it values?
Yes! You're the first person to ever get that, actually, in a workshop like this.
Only because I wrote down the process, and I know the next thing is to know our values. So I was like, it must be values, it must be values.
A round of applause for Gemma there. The short definition is what's important. What and who is important. So it's not what society says about what we should believe. It's not what society says about what you should believe as a man or as a woman, what your family think even. It's definitely about you. There's some really strong research that shows if you work out what's important, it's really like having that Sat Nav and switching it on. So that sense that, well, how do I know if I'm going in the wrong direction? Knowing your values is like knowing your destination, but it's also really important that it can be shown in action. So if it can't be shown in action, it's not a value. For example, kind. Kind is a value. I could do something kind to you right now. That would be putting my values into action. It's about who you choose to be, who you want to be, and it's about expressing it in small ways in your actions. And this idea that the more we understand where our destination is, then we'll start to notice when we're going in the right direction as opposed to not. So like we've talked a little bit about, maybe if you're interested in gardening, you go out to water your plants, you go and feed your animals, they're towards me. So we're going towards the things that are important to us. We're going in the right direction. We're driving our own van. And then these difficult thoughts and feelings come up and they hijack us. So we're actually then being driven by someone else. So we don't end up doing what's important to us at all. I guess it would be useful to you and think about, well, how do we work this stuff out? I often ask people if, think about your next big birthday. I don't know how old you guys are, but sadly mine's going to be my 60th. What do you want people to say truthfully about you at your next big birthday? So if someone was standing up and doing a speech, what would you want them to truthfully say?
I did a bit of work on this a long time, and it just made me realise I've never realigned, because obviously your values kind of change through life. And I was going to see a psychiatrist, and she made me do some work on my values back then. And one of the major things that I realised that when I did work on my values is that what I was doing with my life had nothing to do with any of my values. I quite like being around people and being social, but I like my own space. And I reckon that my values have probably changed a lot from then to now.
I always talk to people about values are a bit like they're on a globe. They're not kind of flat. So sometimes, these values might be in my forefront, but it doesn't stop these values being true. I can spin it around in another context. And you're right. Sometimes the prominent values change, and I'm sure they'll continue. So what values are very prominent for you at the moment?
I think mine are around, a lot of it is around advocacy, around standing up for people and standing up for myself. I think that's definitely one of my massive ones at the moment. I would say that it's kind of, a lot of it is around being kind, but on all different levels, if you know what I mean. So even if it's sometimes cruel to be kind, I can still be kind, and as long as I'm sort of doing something that I feel like I'm doing something good in the world. And another one is, I think when you said as well that they don't really change, I think one of my major ones in London was being successful. So in theory, I was going up the ladder, and I was production management sort of level, and I was going to earn 40 grand by the time I was 40 a year and things like that, probably 50 grand a year, and I was doing all these things, and they were like my measures of success.
Yeah, that's some really good stuff that you'd want people to say if they were doing your speech. These are the kind of 3 ways that if people say, oh, I don't know what my values are, these are the 3 key ways that I would often try and help them think about it. So what would you want people to say either at your funeral or the next big party? If you only had 45 days left to live, what would you do? Who would you spend time with? What would you do less of? What would you do more of? And would that change what you do in the next 45 days? And some people find that a really useful way to think about, well, what is really important? I don't know what comes to mind for you guys when you think about that.
I've got one that's really, really weird that instantly jumped into my head, but I wasn't really aware that was a thing. Okay. Was that I would like someone in the next 45 days to turn around and be like, God damn, I've always found you so damn attractive.
Gemma, isn't that weird? I've always found you really attractive.
Thank you. Isn't that weird? Isn't that a thing? Like to be seen outwardly. That's a value that I never thought I really had. But I think that's true. If I had 45 days to live, that's weird. I don't like it.
That's really interesting. So your mind's throwing something up and then you don't like it because, what's your mind saying about that?
Just it seems quite shallow, and it seems quite, you've got 45 days to live, Gemma. Really? That's what you're concentrating on. You're not going to go out and feed the thousands. You're going to find a hottie and have a good time. Really?
You could be arguing that what's really important is intimacy and acceptance and finding, that elusive soulmate, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's the weird thing, is that my general attitude tends to be, I don't need anyone. I can be on my own. I'm happiest on my own. So maybe that's like a value that I need to kind of look at, be more accepting of, and then just slightly turn towards.
I really like that. I think that's really beautifully put. So I'll move on to the final way that I often use then to clarify people's values, which is about looking over the last month or week or day even, and thinking of a moment when it felt like all the stars aligned. So it doesn't have to be a massive thing. So for me, it was on Sunday, I had the unique experience where all my 4 children were in my house for lunch. And they were just sitting around the table doing that kind of banter stuff. And I just kind of caught myself looking like a camera, just going, oh, that's really nice. That's really nice. And then just thinking about that, well, what does that say about my values? So there's something in there about connection and good relationships and family. Finishing this session, So by next session, write out something about your values. There's lots on the internet. There's some values checklists, so you can look those up if you want some additional ideas. Thank you for joining us for another episode of PPE for the Mind. Remember, these are skills that you'll initially feel clumsy at, and you need to keep practicing. And there's lots of us doing this at the same time. So when you're feeling like you're really not driving your own van as smoothly as you'd like to be, remember that there's all these other learner drivers out there practicing the same things at the same time.